And welcome to Draft Today, presented by Verizon. As we follow the second and third rounds of the 2021 NFL Draft, I am here with the Super Scout Bucky Brooks. Did it for the Seahawks and the Panthers. Now he does it for us. And a man, as I said yesterday, I think I said this yesterday, Lance, who has calluses on his calluses from writing all them bios and pro comps. And when you click on NFL.com and a player's name and you see the pro comparisons, the grades, that is the man who put all that together. And gentlemen, we had a history-making day and a half / 2 days here through the first three rounds of the NFL Draft, because for the first time in draft history, 8 quarterbacks, E-I-G-H-T, snowman for all you golfers out there, quarterbacks selected in the first 3 rounds. That is the most in NFL draft history, according to our NFL research department. And Lance, I want to get you started because you're set up in Houston. Right. You've been in the middle of this firestorm surrounding Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans, and they select Davis Mills out of Stanford. Just walk us through that third-round selection and what maybe we ought to read into that.
Well, so it's clear. I mean, no one is saying anything, but Deshaun Watson's not going to play for the Houston Texans again, and I think when the Texans, I think what they've done in this offseason shows you that he's just not going to be a Texan, and this was the nail in the coffin. And with the selection of Davis Mills at that position, the Texans are basically saying, look, we know that Davis Mills might not be the future starter, but we're going to give him a legitimate chance. They've added Tyrod Taylor. They traded for Ryan Finley. So they've got quarterbacks on the roster, and I haven't even mentioned Deshaun Watson, who could come back, theoretically as a Houston Texan. So I think this is now 3 quarterbacks on the roster not named Deshaun Watson. Best case scenario, they know Watson's going to miss some time. But what Davis Mills does is we're talking about a former 5-star quarterback who has a lively arm. He's not the most mobile guy. I mean, he's a true pocket passer. But you see flashes of what he can be and who he can be. But I thought it was a curious selection. I'm not going to lie, because if you look at this and you say, you got needs all over the roster, and you take potentially a developmental quarterback with 11 starts and 2 major injuries in his background, that's what you're going to go with your first pick of the third round. I thought it was a little bit of a panic, frankly, after 2 quarterbacks had gone just prior to that selection, and Kyle Trask back into the second, and then Kyle Mond right before the selection of Davis Mills. I don't know what you thought, Bucky, but if you have that many holes, I'm not going with a developmental quarterback.
Yeah, no, I think it's a little rich because we don't know what the Deshaun Watson thing is going to turn out to be. But Davis Mills is a developmental prospect. And if you think about this, Deshaun Watson doesn't come back. You still have Tyrod Taylor. Does that mean Davis Mills is going to be your backup quarterback? I like the traits. I like what he's done. But remember, he's a guy who's only started 11 games. Man, for this to be your first pick as a Houston Texan, you Nick Casario, I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I just don't know if I want to kind of cast my lot with Davis Mills as the quarterback of the future, if that's what the intention was.
Well, I would say this. If I were Davis Mills, I'd be excited about being behind Tyrod Taylor because Baker Mayfield was behind him and then Justin Herbert was behind him. But I do want to caution, in Buffalo, Nate Peterman was also behind Tyrod Taylor in his first start. He threw 5 interceptions in the first half, and he got his first start ahead of Tyrod Taylor. All right, Bucky, Lance, let's get to it. The second round, the first 10 selections that got us going today, and some big names in there. We knew we were going to have talent come off in a hurry. Tyson Campbell, the lightning quick corner out of Georgia, got it started. And we're going to get to a couple of these. Javon Holland, who is listed as a safety, but I know a lot of folks thought this is someone who could be a nickel corner, so versatile at that safety position. Miami trades up to go get him. And you see Tevin Jenkins. You get Justin Fields in the first round, then the Bears come back. Probably get their right tackle moving forward in Jenkins. But, Bucky, get us started on Elijah Moore. And this was a name that felt like he was a riser here these last 2 or 3 days, that he could end up getting selected in the first round. Instead, he goes at the top of the second. I know you like the pick.
I love the pick because he is one of the purest route runners that we'll find. And also, he's a natural slot receiver. So when you think about building this offense around Zach Wilson and what you want to do with the Jets, you have to have playmakers, guys that can make plays, guys that can score from distance. Elijah Moore is that outstanding route runner, terrific playmaker with the ball in his hands, all the cute gadget stuff that you want to do. He is able to do it. This is a great pick by the New York Jets.
Couldn't agree more. I think he's a really, really talented player. I thought the route running reminded me of Antonio Brown, where you have a smaller guy who's able to just just snap you off in a phone booth, and he's getting separation. It was amazing watching how polished his route running is. I know, Bucky, you follow a lot of the high school stuff, obviously. I saw video of him at a camp just breaking people off terribly with his route running. And I don't see a lot of weaknesses, and I think that's very important. Let me tell you why I really love this. You got a young quarterback that you want to build with, then give him a safety blanket that is dependable, reliable, and tough. And that's exactly what Elijah Moore is. Great hands. He reminds me of a souped-up version of what Sterling Shepard was when he came out, but stronger, more physical, and I think an even faster separator out of breaks. So I just love this pick. I thought he should have been a first-round pick.
I got a feeling like Sam Darnold's sitting in Charlotte or wherever he might be right now going, I mean, they trade up to get the best guard in the draft, and then they back it up with Elijah Moore. I had to sit there for 3 years, and this is what Zach Wilson's going to have to start with. Bucky, start us off again, because you certainly know Javonte Williams, your alma mater, North Carolina, and what one of the running backs here in this second round is going to bring to the NFL as he takes that step from amateur to pro.
I mean, he's a rare find at the position, because you're talking about someone who runs the ball between the tackles like a grown man, but then he has ballerina-like feet when he's in tight quarters. This is an exceptional playmaker with the ball in his hands. He is someone who I think has the opportunity to be a guy that catches 50 passes out the backfield while also giving you 1,000 yards annually. He hasn't even scratched the surface of his potential as a playmaker yet.
No, it was like I was watching Kareem Hunt all over again. I mean, he's well built. You know, I in my draft profile, I wrote that he was a bully back who had a great feet, a blend of animosity and feel. And what I mean by that is really what Bucky just said. When he wants to lower the pads, you're going to go careening off. I mean, he's going to play bumper cars with you. He's really physical. I mean, really physical. And but when you need a little wiggle and a little finesse around the goal line, he can give you enough finesse. And I think something that I really love is he's a pro back in terms of reading the blocking scheme, being patient. And I like the fact that instead of having Royce Freeman and Philip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon, you kind of get all of that wrapped into one with 1 3-down back. So I think you've incorporated a lot of the work from 3 different backs into one more talented back.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, and it's interesting because obviously, you know, Philip Lindsay's now in Houston. I'm interested to see what it means for the future of Melvin Gordon. It's a pretty big number that he's carrying, and I think it's probably safe to say he was a bit of a disappointment last year. You could just see the difference in the juice from Lindsay compared to that power from Melvin Gordon. So going to be interested to see what they do there. Let's shift to a couple more picks that, again, we would not have been surprised had we heard their names called in the first round. Lance, why don't you get us started here, and let's go with Landon Dickerson and kind of maybe why he slipped here into the second, because, man, you want to talk about just stellar reviews about an individual and what they think he can bring to a team in a locker room.
Yeah, the only reason he slipped, I'm convinced that if he would have been healthy, he might have been a selection or at least a heavy consideration for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are looking to upgrade their running game. Landon Dickerson can play guard. He can play center. He's very physical. But I think the only reason that he fell off is because of medicals. He's had medical issues in 3 of the years he's played college football, season-ending injuries. But what you have with him is more than just a quality blocker. You have a phenomenal culture changer in the locker room. He's a guy that keeps things light but keeps things fun. And everyone at Alabama tells you that. When he's on the field, it's more fun. The game is more fun. The locker room's more fun. And Bucky could probably speak to this. I mean, it can be a grind. This business can be a grind. And so if you have a guy like that who's a center, no less, a lot of times they're the leader certainly in the offensive line room, and sometimes in that locker room they can be big leaders. That's a big deal to have a guy that's a positive, high-energy guy that can play a little bit.
Look, he can play a little bit, and what I like about him is he's a physical force at the point of attack. Sometimes when you get centers, they may not be the most physical people in terms of moving the furniture, moving defenders off the ball, but Landon Dickerson does that, and the fact that he plays guard gives him an opportunity to be a very versatile player for this team.
And then let's stay with the Alabama guys, Bucky, and I brought it up yesterday following the first run. I'll bring it up again because it was a pretty great video and just how succinct and perfectly Nick Saban put it. And Christian Barmore, you know, Nick Saban talked about, are you going to be an and guy or are you going to be a but guy? And I think that Christian Barmore was probably a but guy because, I mean, the gap between him and the other defensive tackle seems like it was pretty substantial, and yet he lasts all the way until the Pats in the second round.
Yeah, well, I think the big thing for Barmore is when you looked at the tape, he's a little hot and cold. You don't know which guy's going to show up. Now, he turned up during the playoff, and we got a chance to see him on national TV, probably play his best series of games, but he didn't play like that consistently. That said, man, if someone can kind of unlock that motor and get it going and firing hot all the time, you're talking about an interior pass rush that had 8 sacks, and when he does it, he makes it look easy. He has a tremendous amount of talent. It is all about the consistency.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, when he's right, to me, he's like a mid-first round pick. There's no question about it. He can play the run. We know that all Alabama defensive linemen can, but he really can rush the passer from the interior, and that typically carries a lot of value in the draft. And so for him to fall out, as you mentioned, Money, it does tell you that something is going on there. And I think Bucky hit on it. It's the hot and cold stuff. Nick Saban said, no, it's a good, Nick Saban really backed up Christian Barmore from a character standpoint, but it doesn't make sense that a player with this kind of talent ends up sliding into the second. So I'm with Bucky. If he can keep the motor running at all times, the talent is there, I think, to be a really, really good starter.
Yeah, and we'll get to it. That kind of gets us started. All this first-round talent that we end up seeing last until the second round and even the third round in some cases. And as we step aside here, take our first break, when we return, we're going to get to more of that because the Cowboys, the Giants, a lot of teams found some great value in the second round. We'll get into the Giants, Browns, Cowboys, and their second-round selections that we thought were going to go in the first next on Draft Today, presented by Verizon. All right, back on Draft Today, presented by Verizon. A look at some of the notable names selected in the second round. Again, it's going to end up being a theme, some first-round talent, quite a bit of first-round talent taken here in the second round. Don't know if there were actual first-round grades, I should say, on these players, but certainly felt like these are a smattering of names that we would not have been surprised in the least to have heard called yesterday in the first 32 picks. So, Bucky, Lance, and Bucky, why don't you get us started? The Cowboys had been in just about every mock draft, given J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain II in the first round. When that didn't come together, they traded back a couple spots, picked up a third for moving down 2 slots. They take Micah Parsons. So what do they get in Kelvin Joseph as that corner that they decide to select, knowing the need that they have at that position?
Ultra-athletic playmaker, a guy who has all the talent in the world to emerge as a shutdown corner. But the big thing is when you look at the tape, he's a little undisciplined and inconsistent. That said, in Dan Quinn's defense, he's exactly what you look for. A feisty, instinctive, playmaking corner that loves to put his hands on people. He can be a guy that really plays at a high level. The thing is, you just got to get him to play a little more consistent with his technique.
You know, a lot of what Bucky's talking about sounds a lot like Marcus Peters when he came out, right? Has that size, soft hands, instinctive. He's got the ball skills. And just like with Marcus Peters, you know, sometimes lacked the discipline that he needed. I think the other concern you have with Joseph, and that some people thought could cause him to fall out of the second round, is that there is a question a little bit about, you know, some of the football character and the maturity. He had some bad penalties, 15-yard penalties that made no sense at all. He just lost complete cool. And I know that when he left Kentucky, that left a really bad taste in their head coach, Mark Stoops, in his mouth. He really didn't like the way that thing went down. And, you know, I know he left LSU as well, so he left a couple different schools. It was a late season opt-out here at Kentucky. But the talent, man, he's really, really talented. And as Bucky mentioned, man, the traits and the ball skills and the hands, all of that really fit what Dallas is into right now.
I would just say his path, featuring multiple stops, is your standard AAU Player of the Year looking resume as he made his way into the NFL. Bucky, now look, we didn't see a lot of Kelvin Joseph in the first round, but we did see a lot of Azeez Ojulari in the first round. That was a name that we saw quite a bit. What do you think led to him slipping here into the second?
You know, I don't really know, but here's what I would say about Azeez Ojulari when I watched the tape. I thought he was super twitchy. I thought he was a guy who really was an outstanding speed rusher, but I felt like he was a little bit of a one-trick pony. Maybe some teams were kind of scared off on what the repertoire would be, but it really doesn't make sense when you look at some of the other guys that went ahead of him. Maybe money, there's something behind the scenes that we don't know about, because this is a very talented and explosive pass rusher that we thought would have been off the board before he was selected.
Yeah, I heard from a team that there's a little bit of a medical on the shoulder, and so I think you're right, Bucky. I think that's probably what did it, because when you watched him in Georgia tried to get they have like 8 different defensive linemen that they're constantly rotating in. When I'm watching tape, I'm just saying, 13 needs to be on the field all the time. Why is 13 not on the field all the time? Because he's definitely the best defensive lineman and pass rusher out there. He is a little bit of a one-trick pony, and I do think he needs to become more skilled with his hands at the top of the rush. But the talent and the skill level, the talent level and some of the traits and I think the play strength, even though he's less than 250 pounds, that feels NFL ready, to be honest with you. He plays like a really strong dude for being about 249. So I think the reason he fell, a little bit of an injury concern, and something we haven't really talked about on these post-wrap shows yet, Bucky and Money, is that this is a weird year with the medical combines happening in early April. There's just not time to clean up some of those medical concerns on players, and some teams are just going better safe than sorry.
And I do want to point out that Ojulari was drafted after the Giants traded back again. So after all that narrative surrounding Dave Gettleman never trading back in his 9 years as a general manager, does it in the first, does it in the second as well. Perhaps just to prove a point, maybe not, to collect more assets, and certainly getting a couple really good players with each of those selections. Let's go to, and again, this was another theme. This, I think, might have been the biggest fall of all. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Lance, and him lasting all the way to the late second round when the Browns were more than happy to snatch him up.
So I don't have an answer for this one. I really don't. I don't know. I put on Twitter, and I even put @OldTakes expose. So I added them. I said, look, save this if you want, but there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be very sad they passed on Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the same way the teams are sad that they passed on DK Metcalf. This is, to me, a guy that has tremendous upside, some of the best upside of anybody in the entire draft. He's lightning fast. He's very physical and aggressive. The instincts are not fully formed. I get that, and you may say, well, he's kind of caught between linebacker and safety. But what I know is he can rush the passer effectively. He can really cover. He's got all the different traits and tools that people wanted. I think he has the skill to become what people wanted Jabril Peppers to become, and only in a longer, faster frame. So I'm a fan of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I know he's only in the low 220s, but Darius Leonard plays 218 to 225. So I don't know why he fell, to be honest.
Yeah, it's really a mystery, but I will say the Cleveland Browns cleaned up because he is a fantastic playmaker. And when we think about the way the game is evolving, having someone on the second level that's that hybrid linebacker safety is a necessity. He fills that role. He's nasty. I think he's a perfect fit for what the Browns want to do defensively, particularly in an AFC North where you have some talented playmakers on the other side of the ball.
You know, I almost wonder if he just gets stuck, you know, like Isaiah Simmons last year and how celebrated he was, and it just never quite came together. Seemed like he came on a little bit toward the end of the year. You guys talk about those hybrid players, or maybe the twin. What was our guy's name? Buchanan, right? Deontay, that was in Arizona. Another one where it was like, is he a safety?
Deion Buchanan.
With Deion Buchanan, Hassan Reddick, Arizona, and now you've got Isaiah Simmons. Yeah. So, yeah, that's something they've tried to do, and with limited success so far.
Yeah, so that may be, you know, people are just afraid. You know, you mentioned Jabril Peppers, again, trying to realize that potential. All right, Bucky, Lance, let's get to snap grades presented by Verizon. And, Bucky, why don't you get a started snap grade on the Bears, trading up to get Tevin Jenkins to play tackle?
Man, if I keep dishing out these A's to the Bears, I'm going to be the easy teacher that everyone wants. But I have to give my A for Tevin Jenkins because when I think about the Bears and how the Bears should play, it is all about toughness, physicality, and aggressiveness. And when I look at Tevin Jenkins, he kind of reminds me of that nightclub bouncer that is always on you about the dress code, no white tees, no Timberland boots, you can't get in the club, and I'm throwing you out. That's how Tevin Jenkins plays. Because I think one night Joseph Asai tried to sneak into the club, and he was inappropriately dressed. And in the Texas game, he threw him completely out of the club and wouldn't let him get in.
I know what you're talking about, Bucky. There's two plays in a row. One of them, he threw him into the sidelines. Like, one of them, he's into the sidelines completely. Yeah.
And I can still see that guy wearing that yellow shirt getting upended. Before he didn't know what the heck hit him.
That's right. Do you like the glasses, by the way, with him, Money? I like the right tackle with the glasses like that. I think it's a good look.
Looks like a guy who's not happy he's out there, and he's just taking it out on everybody else. All right, how about Liam Eichenberg? Jeez, I'll spit it out there. Give me a snap grade on that there, Lance.
Well, so my dad actually did some work with him pre-draft, so I want to stay in the will. So let's go with an A here for Liam Eichenberg. Looks like he was really coached up well before the draft. Got his technique down. You know, in all seriousness, Notre Dame tackles are always great with the technique. And Liam Eichenberg, I don't think he's going to be on the left side where you see him right now. I think he's going to be a right tackle. But I'm going to go A for the Dolphins because they didn't go with Penei Sewell. They went with the playmaker and Waddle. They had the patience and the understanding and the belief in their board that they would have a tackle there. And there he was, Liam Eichenberg. Second round, they found their tackle. So they got their tackle-wide receiver combination. And I think he'll be a really solid right tackle for several years. I don't know if he's going to be great, but I think he's going to be one of those solid two-contract tackles that really does the job and locks it up for Miami so they're not worried about that position anymore.
Hey, I mean, we've heard it now for years, right? If you can just be average on the offensive line, you're ahead of a good chunk of the rest of the league. And you know what? Like you said, if he's just solid on the field, it seemed like everything we heard, he is spectacular off the field. There's a reason why that guy was a multi-year captain and a leader on that Notre Dame Fighting Irish team for Brian Kelly. And that was Snap Grades presented by Verizon. When we return, we got exciting quarterbacks in the NFC West. Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford, Kyler Murray. They have new weapons, new toys to play with. We'll get to selections, a wide receiver run for the NFC West when we return on Draft Today presented by Verizon.
two-time first-team All-ACC.
Downfield shot. Atwell makes a catch.
Tutu Atwell, wide receiver.
And Tutu makes an electric play downfield.
Yeah, I actually weigh more than an NFL player. This is very exciting. Tutu Atwell there, the third wide receiver selected among some NFC West participants. We had a little bit of a run, Bucky and Lance, and we might as well go in order because when you got Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray and now Matthew Stafford slinging the ball around, awfully excited to get some of these pass catchers that were selected on day 2 of the draft. Why don't we get started, Bucky, with Rondale Moore. Speaking of small package, but boy, you want to talk about explosive out of Purdue, and he's going to be going to play with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, explosive playmaker. Guy that's built like a running back, does a really good job of creating space and making things happen with the ball in his hands. Now, you would say that he's a dynamo at 5'7". He can do all of those creative things. Injuries and durability has been a bit of an issue, but if he's on the field and ready to go, man, you're talking about a guy that can put the ball in the paint from a variety of different locations on the field in a variety of different ways.
I mean, I'm guessing if you went back to like the early aughts, like 1908 or something, you might have found a shorter quarterback to wide receiver. I don't even know if the forward pass was around back then, but just, when the guys are going, hut, kind of one of those sort of deals. But this has got to be darn close. 5'10" to 5'7". Let's go to Dwayne Eskridge, Lance. The Seahawks take him.
Another small, fast wide receiver. Listen, there's a theme here that you're going to start to pick up on. He is a sub 5'10" wide receiver with 4.3 speed. I mean, he is a big-time burner. And there's a lot of low-key love around the league for Dwayne Eskridge. Everybody you talk to from a team standpoint, they really have a bad thing to say about him. They love the fact that he's got that catch-and-go speed, as you see right there, can take the ball and turn a short pass into a long gain, a long touchdown. And that's what he is. And when you look at what Seattle is doing, they have the big guy to do that in DK Metcalf. Now they've got someone, as Bucky likes to say, a different member of the basketball team, a different a basketball player out there who can give you a different look and different feel, but they're doing the same thing. They're stretching the field. They're running those over routes, the slants, the posts, and they're going to put safeties in a bind in that offense. So I actually like that. I think it's a good fit for that scheme, a really good fit.
And let's finish it up with the first pick of the Rams. Of course, they traded their first in a package of 2 first-rounders to Jacksonville for Jalen Ramsey. So their first pick is in the second round. And I'm not kidding, Buck. I think this is legitimately the first time I can say I weigh more than an NFL player because Tutu checked in at 155 at one point.
Ooh,
yeah,
lower.
You're being generous because he came down lower. He got under the 150 range, 149, because he was like, I want Matt Money Smith to wear the belt this week. And so this is a light dude now. He's tiny, but what I will say is he's dynamite in that small package. He can make things happen on the perimeter. Terrific stop-start quickness and burst. He's just a light guy, so he has to be careful. He has to make sure they don't run up on him and press him because they can knock him around. But if you get him in space, man, look out. Big things can happen.
I always say, when people joke like, man, I could put you out there and you can catch 3 balls against that team. And I would always respond, if you put me out there, I'd get hit and I would explode into dust. That is why I don't belong on a football field. So I'm anxious to see what Sean McVay has planned for Tutu Atwell. Well, let's now flip it and talk about a tall drink of water, a big-bodied quarterback, because we did have Kyle Trask go at the back end, the very last pick of the second round. We know Bruce Arians likes him big. I'm sure he had some input here. But, Lance, the thoughts behind Kyle Trask ended up in Tampa with their pretty high pick, their second-round selection.
Mm-hmm. This is one of the ones I got right in my mock draft, round 2 and round 3. I had Kyle Trask with the last pick of the second round going to Tampa. It just makes sense. He's a big pocket passer. He's got the ability to deliver the ball deep with good accuracy and good touch, which is something that Bruce Arians really, really likes. It fits the wide receiving core that they already have. And you can play him slowly and bring him along behind Tom Brady for 1 to 2 years if that's what you need to do. I don't know that there's a guarantee that he's going to be, a really plus NFL starter. I think he might be able to develop into an average starter. But I think the one thing that you really like about him is that his delivery and accuracy and touch. I mean, he throws like an NFL quarterback. So that's what that team really, really likes. For me, I still feel like low-end starter is probably what he's going to be in the league. When you take everything into account, you're going to have to really, really protect him. He's not a complete pocket statue, Bucky, but he's also not a guy that's going to extend plays on his own, I don't think.
No, he won't extend plays on his own. Luckily for him, he's going to Tampa where they have a standout offensive line. They have playmakers all around him. And so if he ever does get his chance, because Tom Brady may play to his 50, he may have an opportunity to be successful. But it's a good pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They didn't really have a quarterback on the contract, so this is a young quarterback that can develop. And we'll see. We'll see what he turns out, what kind of player he turns out to be when he has a couple of seasons under his belt sitting behind Tom Brady.
I'm going to go pro comparison, Jim Drunkenmiller. All right, that brings us to pro comparisons presented by Lowe's. And Bucky, I'm going to get you on a pro comparison for our man Pat Freiermuth, drafted in the second round by the Steelers, the tight end.
He's a classic wide tight end, and we don't really see many of those anymore. So I'm going to make the comparison that he reminds me a little bit of Jason Witten, meaning he is a guy that can be a terrific inline blocker. He can run routes over the middle of the field, soft hands, just a consistent chain mover. And when I think about the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they're doing, first with Najee Harris and then with Freiermuth, I think what they're trying to do is trying to find a way to energize Ben Roethlisberger and help him have success, particularly late in the year where you can find big playmakers over the middle of the field.
Look at that beautiful head of hair on Jason Witten. Oh, those were the salad days when those locks were flowing. All right, what do you got for me on Asante Samuel Jr., Lance?
Well, this is kind of just lazy, isn't it? But I'm going to say Asante Samuel Sr., maybe. Actually, from a size standpoint, from a playing style standpoint, it's actually not a bad comparison. And it makes some sense because a lot of times DBs end up playing like their dads. And I think that Asante Samuel, when you see him, you can tell this has been a player who's been well-schooled from the time he was young. He's got very good ball skills. He's got the ability to go up there and high point, as you saw a while ago. His dad was a player that would sit back and zone and then fire on the ball because he had really good instincts and the twitch to do something about it. He led the league in interceptions 2 different years, including the last time was like 2009, I believe. So, and that is one of the strengths for Asante Samuel Jr. are the ball skills and the instincts. I think he can squeeze it tighter and really improve on what I saw on tape this year. I think he can play a lot better than what I saw. The skills and the talent are there. I think I'd like to see him squeeze it a little more and play with a little bit better discipline, but there's no reason he can't become the same player that his dad was in the NFL, and that's a hell of a player.
Yeah, I know Chargers awfully excited the way the draft board broke. They get Rashawn Slater to slide to them. They had hoped one of their corners on their board was going to be there when they selected at 47, and they ended up getting one that they were awfully excited about in Asante Samuel Jr. And those were pro comparisons presented by Lowe's. When we return, we're going to get you our favorite picks of day 2, the second and the third round as we keep it going here. Following the 2021 NFL Draft today, presented by Verizon. Favorite picks are next.
Get to know Wisconsin Whitewater offensive lineman Quinn Meinerz. He doesn't train like a miner. He trains like a lumberjack.
To keep training every single day until that special moment, come draft day, and it'll be cool to share that moment with my family.
Quinn posted an amazing YouTube video in which he's working out in the wild, throwing logs like a lumberjack, pancake blocking trees, and squatting piles of wood. He majored in physical education with an emphasis in strength and conditioning and wants to be a strength and conditioning coach after his playing career. Meinerz was the only Division III player in the 2021 Reese's Senior Bowl.
Oh, look at our guy. Wait till you see what he did on this one. Quinn Meinerz on that one. Another pancake just collapsing his side of the line of scrimmage.
But he stole the show and definitely moved up draft boards. We don't know where he's going, but he should be a first-round pick for this crop top half shirt alone.
Well, and he ends up going in the third round to the Denver Broncos. And what a story. Division III, maybe a 6th, 7th rounder, puts on that show that y'all saw at the Senior Bowl, and he ends up going in the top 100 picks. Here's some other notable selections. See a couple quarterbacks there. Josh Palmer, the standout receiver from Tennessee, a lot of people are excited about, goes to the Chargers. North Carolina receiver, I know you and DJ were talking about. I move the sticks. Diami Brown goes to the Washington football team. But, Buck, let's get to the quarterbacks, and particularly Kellen Mond, and kind of what you saw out of him at Texas A&M and what kind of fit he'll be for the Vikings.
Experienced playmaker, guy with 43 starts, played under Jimbo Fisher, who's one of the best quarterback tutors that you can get at the collegiate level. This is a guy that improves steadily each and every season. And when you get an opportunity to put him in the system that the Minnesota Vikings run, it should really accentuate his skills. This is a talented playmaker, a guy who I think has a chance in 2 or 3 years to eventually be a starting quarterback in the league.
Yeah, I've watched him all 4 years. He's been a 4-year starter at Texas A&M. His growth from his freshman sophomore year was good. The junior year is a little bit choppy with a shaky offensive line and Jimbo Fisher's offense. He's just starting to really, I think, dive in fully. And then this year, it was like it all came together. Offensive line was good, running game was good, and he got better. I mean, he throws the ball well. He comes out quickly. He's got zip. I mean, he's an IMG Academy kid, so there were people who really saw a lot of potential in him, and I think his best football might be ahead of him. I'm not sure, as Bucky mentioned. I don't know where the ceiling is. He does have things to clean up, but one thing we know is that his jump from last year to this year, when everything was right around him, was pretty substantial, and they got some pretty good things around the quarterback in Minnesota, so that's a good fit for him.
Lance, why don't you just kind of keep it going here then? Let's go to Amari Rodgers. The Packers end up selecting a wide receiver. Rejoice, everybody. They got help for Aaron Rodgers because he's got nothing up there in Green Bay. So thank goodness Amari Rodgers is now a Packer. What do you make of the selection?
Good selection. I like Amari Rodgers. Goes and gets the ball when it's in the air. Just a really solid version of what we talked about earlier with Elijah Moore. I think Amari Rodgers has some of those same exact traits and qualities, from the body type to some of the route running. I think there are more limitations on him in terms of his overall explosiveness. He does run really fast. I mean, it's not like he doesn't test well. But most importantly, I like the fact that he could maybe be the new Randall Cobb, if you want to go all the way back, for Aaron Rodgers and be that reliable guy from the slot.
Yeah, I actually like that comparison. That's what I was thinking about, because when I look at Amari Rodgers, he looks like a running back the way that he's built, his stature, but he really is a very natural slot receiver. If you go all the way back to when Randall Cobb was with the Green Bay Packers, very similar comparison. We saw the kind of success that Aaron Rodgers had with Randall Cobb. I think he can replicate that success with Amari Rodgers working in the slot.
All right, let's keep it going with some individuals and reaction. It is time for Best Picks, and the Best Picks is presented by Microsoft Teams. Here's a look at Draft Selection Square, the Draft Selection Square room at NFL headquarters in New York City, where every club's pick from today's rounds, were submitted via Microsoft Teams. So, Bucky, right back to you. Favorite pick of day 2?
Favorite pick is Elijah Moore going to the New York Jets. And the reason why I like this is because it was critical for the Jets to find another playmaker, another weapon to go opposite Corey Davis. So now you have Zach Wilson, a rebuilt offensive line, talented playmakers on the outside. Robert Saleh in his first year has a legitimate offense. I don't know how explosive they will be, but they have a credible offense that will make defensive coordinators have to prepare. I like the way the New York Jets are going. Elijah Moore was a great pick and fit for them.
And again, Sam Darnold says, thanks. Thanks a lot. Lance, favorite pick?
I'm going to go with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah with the Cleveland Browns late in the second round. Even though they ended up getting a good linebacker in Jamin Davis in the first round, they still come back and say, you know what, this is too good a football player to pass up. He's got some hybrid safety linebacker qualities, but the thing that people don't talk about is his ability to blitz off the slot, which I think is a very valuable tool. He can match up against big tight ends and matchup tight ends both. And it's just, he is a hybrid player who I believe will be one of the first ones to really unleash those hybrid talents. So I think where they got him, I think he will end up, people will look at him as one of the 5 best defensive players to come out of this draft. And I think Cleveland really got a steal there.
Lance, we're going to double up on Domers because I've been complaining for Sam Darnold and making excuses for him of why maybe it didn't work out with the New York Jets. But, boy, is he stepping into something in Carolina, right? Joe Brady has his play caller. You got DJ Moore. You got Robbie Anderson. They draft Terrence Marshall. And, man, I love Tommy Tremble. As people don't know, I call games for the Chargers. I was hopeful that he might be their pick at tight end. And I don't know if you really want to call him a tight end, Bucky Lance, because he's just kind of out there blocking all over the place. You don't see a lot of those catches. There weren't a whole lot of them in his entire career. But, boy, you think about him just blocking for Christian McCaffrey, what Joe Brady's going to scheme up for him. This is an exciting player. Look, football is a violent sport at times, and this is a dude that brings it. I mean, when he is engaged, if he can get that pass catching right, I'm not saying it's George Kittle, but you think about how much we celebrate George Kittle because he's a willing blocker. And, man, Tommy Tremble is not just a willing blocker. He is excited and engaged as a blocker. I absolutely love the selection for the Carolina Panthers. And that is Best Picks presented by Microsoft Teams. All right, we still got one more to go, and we're going to put a cap on this draft, react to everything that we saw from day 2, and then take a look to day 3, some of the best players available. That's all next on Draft Today, presented by Verizon. Well, if you want to know when your favorite team is taking the field in 2021 or when this weekend's draft picks are making their debuts. You can find out in just a few days when the NFL releases its 2021 schedule. The whole thing going to be revealed on Wednesday, May 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern on NFL Network and ESPN2. All right, let's get to Cap on the Draft, presented by New Era. Let's get our takeaways from day 2. Bucky, get us started.
You know, I really like what the Chicago Bears are doing, and I think we have to really judge their draft in total. But the fact that they're able to get Justin Fields, and then you think about Tevin Jenkins and the way that they're going about it, this is a team in a make-or-break season. To get 2 blue-chip players at the top of the board, to me, signals that they're heading in the right direction. Let's see how they finish it off tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm going to go with kind of the flow of the draft I want to talk about just for a second. 8 quarterbacks drafted in the first 3 rounds is pretty impressive, but the amount of offensive linemen drafted today shows you that this is a deep offensive line draft. But we talked about the depth of the wide receiver class. There's some really good wide receivers that are still on the board. Tomorrow is going to be a monster day for the wideouts and corners, the guys who score the touchdowns, the guys who chase them. You're going to see some impressive height, weight, speed, physical specimens. And tomorrow will be when the wide receivers really show out, I think, in round 4 and round 5.
Yeah, and I'll just point out that the Jets and the Dolphins, right? And we talk about all these picks they get from all these trades they've made. And I think you got to see both teams cash them in, multiple picks because they have so many to move up, fall back and then move up to get Waddle, move up to get Holland in the early second round, move up in the first round to get Vera Tucker for the Jets. And sometimes it's not about getting out of a draft with 9 or 10 draft picks, but being able to use all that capital to jump teams and get the players that you want. Maybe you get a couple first rounders when you should have just had a first and a second. Boy, it certainly seemed like the Dolphins and the Jets guys really used their draft capital well through these first 2 days. And that is Cap on the Draft, presented by New Era. All right, Bucky Lance, we got one more day to go in the 2021 draft. We will follow rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7 tomorrow, and we will also follow Machine Gun Kelly. That's right. We follow the Black Pumas tonight. Tomorrow, Machine Gun Kelly concert after round 7 on NFL.com, the NFL app, and, of course, on YouTube. Hope to see you again tomorrow. For Bucky Brooks, Lance Erline, I'm Matt Money Smith. Good night.